You are listening to The Faction. My guest today is Mikey, the singer from the Gloom in the Corner. They're a band from Melbourne, and this group has taken storytelling and conceptual music to a new dimension, and here is your ticket admission. It's called a trinity. So what they've done is they've released 3 singles, all pertaining to and continuing a story. Now, all these singles can be found now in the one place, which is great. It was released only days ago. ULTIMA PLUVIA, and if I'm mispronouncing that, Mikey is going to help me with it. It tells the story of a protagonist named Jay. He's in a battle with a secret government agency. It's juicy, it's scandalous already. To tell us just how deep this story goes and how it became is vocalist from the Gloom in the Corner. Mikey, thank you for chatting to The Faction.
Thank you for having me. And no, you got the pronunciation like 100% correct. Like, that's fine. Yeah. So with the story, like, we've been telling this story about Jay and the other protagonist who's in Flesh and Bones, Sherlock, since the beginning of the Fear Me album, which dropped 4 years ago now. So yeah, basically to catch everybody up, if they're up to date with the story in Flesh and Bones, Jay starts doing work again after those events. But he gets reassigned to another job that he's not particularly fond with, and he begins leaking information about the sect, or Section 13, which is the organisation that he works for, just to spite them, pretty much, out of his own kind of narcissistic arrogance. And so, events begin unfolding. The sect start to become more and more worrisome in the aspect of who might be leaking it, because he's doing it under a different moniker, which has been the Echo 6 moniker, which we've been using since Warfare, the track Warfare that came out.
Which is the second track?
That's the second track, yeah.
Yep.
And so I won't go too much into Warfare,
yeah,
because it is a whole big other thing to do with Sherlock. And if it's okay, I kind of wanted to focus on Requiem because it's a big part of the story. But I'll fill in the blanks and everything. Basically, the sect finally suddenly realized that Jay is the one who's been using this Echo 6 moniker to, leak all the information and everything about the sect over the course of the 3-track cycle. And, they issue a termination order for him. And the termination orders with the sect, them being a secret government organisation, generally lead to full-on termination and execution of agents or past agents who've been labelled as the enemy. So Jay pretty much goes on the run. A worldwide termination order gets, sent through. He's pretty much had a bounty put out on him to the supernatural community, because the sect have basically dwindled their resources since the events of Flesh and Bones and the end of the Fear Me album. So this is where Elias de Graver, who's the leader of the antagonistic force against the sect, they're called the Holy Order, comes in and starts hunting him down himself. And so, basically that's what happens at the end of Requiem, is de Graver finally catches up with Jay. De Graver and Jay do somewhat know each other just from being, around in the supernatural community. So de Graver's kind of I can't bring you in alive, that kind of thing. And so he ends up killing Jay, and that pretty much brings about the end of the cycle. And because Sherlock is, the demonic possessive entity that lives within Jay, Sherlock also dies off as well, with Jay being clapped. So yeah, that's a very condensed, very brief rundown. Warfare kind of plays into a lot more of Sherlock's background and a past life that he had before possessing Jay. But yeah, with Requiem's fully focused on Jay and his emotions and feelings about how the sect have more or less used him over the course of the past, since the Fear Me, the Fear Me record, so the past 4 or 5 years now. So yeah, that's pretty much the condensed rundown version.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Was any of this, and some of the more recent updates to the story, was any of it inspired by the lockdowns in Melbourne and globally?
No. So we did, we recorded the 3-track and wrote the 3-track about this time last year. The actual recording process of the 3-track was in January. So it was before all of that kind of thing happened, before lockdown and everything happened. But with Warfare, we had a website. We had a questionnaire that was proposed through a website, and at the end of the questionnaire, you were either divided into one of the 3 factions that we had created. So you could get the sect, you could get the Gravers faction, which is the Holy Order, or if you got dead on 50-50, depending on what you answered in the questionnaire, you get the Echo 6 one, which is the grey, pretty much. We've been calling it the grey, where it's you're not quite sure whose side you're on, that kind of thing. But if you end up getting the sect answer, you get a little video message from the director of the sect, and at the start of it, it says that the start of the leaks or the proposed leaks haven't gone, as a little tidbit, haven't gone fully noticed by the public community. Hasn't gone fully noticed by the public due to events that have transpired and global pandemics that have taken over since the leak began, which is our little kind of nod to COVID completely fucking everything up on a world scale.
The reason I ask is because it has those themes of government oppression. So that's why I thought that perhaps it could have been inspired by parts of or something to do with all the COVID lockdowns. How is it all constructed? Is it on a whiteboard or is it all in your head?
So, I mean, most of it's in my head. We had a document that pretty much ran through the entire story up to Flesh and Bones, and I'm in the process of updating it now, so it includes all the ULTIMA stuff that happens. And once that's finished, we'll release that to the public so that they can have a fully, a big whole stretch of documentation to properly fill out everything for everybody. But yeah, I try to get as much of the story through music-wise as possible, and through the different forms of media that we have, be it through stream videos, music videos, etc., that kind of thing. But it's a big, big, big story that you need, you pretty much need a whole TV series to cover. And that's why, with the Requiem video that came out today, we wanted to, pay homage to all the different aspects of the story, everything that's somewhat, the main parts of the story that have occurred over the course of the past 4 releases. We have scenes from Fear Me, we have scenes from Homecoming, we have scenes from Flesh and Bones, and we have the new scenes, which include Degraver and everything, and leading up to the end of what happens in Requiem, pretty much. So, and that was our little way of kind of giving back to our fans who've been asking for, stuff like comic books or more intensive media just to fill out the story, pretty much. And
having a listen to it, having a listen to it, I noticed that I think it really does transcend, or it sort of distances itself from the traditional power metal style, because it does include a little bit of metalcore, and this is from my experience listening to it, metalcore with power metal, but some of these really high guitar and high vocal moments almost feels quite theatrical. It almost feels like a battle scene in a sci-fi or a fantasy film. Have you been inspired by any of those things that I've just mentioned, whether it's power metal, theatrical themes, or metalcore?
Oh yeah, 100%. I think with Requiem, I wanted to make Requiem kind of a big orchestral send-off, pretty much. I wanted to make the song pretty much as big as I could possibly make it for the writing.
And that's
process.
The feeling I got listening to it.
Yeah. So for the writing process for Requiem, I took about 4 months making that song and making sure that everything that I'd written orchestral-wise, instrumentation-wise, lyrically, etc., came across perfectly before I sent it to the guys. but yeah, like I just wanted to make it like a big send off, and you know, like I'm heavily influenced by a lot of like movie soundtracks and classical music, and so I took a lot of aspects from that in creating Requiem to make it as big as I possibly could, really, like, or make the track as big as it possibly can be, and make it really, like, make it feel final and make it feel like a proper send off for, you know, the story arc that's occurred over the past 4 releases.
I'm speaking to Mikey, the singer from the Gloom in the Corner, the metal band that have put out. It's not a concept album. It's a trinity of singles that pertain to and continue a story. The singles are as follows, in order to Violence, Warfare, and most recently the song Requiem. Mikey, thank you for chatting to the faction today. Is there anything that you can tell us about 2021 that we should be looking forward to in regards to your band?
I think moving forward, we're going to be going into the next record. I believe we're just about to start preparations for recording the next record. We've pretty much got all the songs done. We just need to do a few final touches before going into the studio and recording them. As for anything like shows and etc., we're not 100% sure.
TBC,
Yeah, TBC, because, you know, like, we want to make sure that everything's safe before we start doing that kind of thing again. But yeah, like, as far as 2021 goes, fingers crossed will be the start of the next story.
Mikey, congratulations on the Trinity ULTIMA PLUVIA. Again, it's a tough one to get out. Thank you for chatting to the faction today.
Thank you for having me, man.